Hi. Good morning, everybody. I'm Paula Johnston from Plumas Rural Services. I am on the Dixie Fire Collaborative Committee, Steering Committee, and I represent Human Services and Disaster Case Management. And I wanted to welcome you all today. And we'll get started today with Danny Steyer, Treasurer's Report.
So good morning, everybody. I'm going to do some things a little bit different here. I'm going to try out here. I've got a summary slide that I'm going to try to walk you through. And then after that, there's a detailed slide that you can go through at your leisure or leisure, whichever you choose. So I got a fancy dandy little pointer here too. So we have an interest of March that came in of $6,419.14. And so the total income I call inflow here of 3 million. Yeah, these numbers kind of really trying to get used to saying them. 3,076,794 So that's what our total inflow is. And then what we did, the Dixie Fire Resource Center received a grant, and also the Ranchia grants were actually approved. So we moved those from our pending into expenditure grants approved column. So that's we got $1,056,484.17 of approved grants. Then we have an expenditure of $720. So it brings our total expenditure to $254,750.19. With this brings up our current account balance of our Dixie Fire Collaborative funds to $1,764,840.58. If we take into account the other commitments we have, of course, our commitments drop because we moved these Dixie Fire Resources and the Rancho Rebuild up into approved. So that caused a decrease. So we have $304,620 of commitments that we have still out there. So actually, if you go ahead and look at that commitments, and we actually could just sum up the commitments and these three items, you'll come up with this $1,615,854 of total outflow. I'll call outflow, but that's our expenditures we got going out, which represents 53% of this 3 million that we have, 3 million plus. And also, the reason I've got these kind of lined up here is that this is what the current balance is in the checking account, if you call it that. Well, if we subtract out off our commitments, we'll get this figure down here, what our available funds actually are. So just kind of look through this. So this is what I'm going to want to do is present in Taylor, rather. If you can just kind of scroll through the others to give us the detail. And we're doing this so you can do this online. It'll be recorded, but you can just get the detail. And then the highlight you see in the blue the things that actually changed, like right here, So that's it in my report.
Next, we will have the folks from Recover California and their housing programs. I believe they're on Zoom.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brittany Halfhide, and I'll be presenting today. Before I started, I just wanted to give a thank you to all the disaster case managers that came out to help us at our application intake event in Greenville on the 11th. It was really successful, and it wouldn't have been possible without that assistance. So with that, I will start our presentation. And today, before I forget, I have Lucretia Hoffman as well on this call with me to help with our Q&A right after the presentation. She's my guru for presentation or for program knowledge. So she's on the call with me today. So I'll get started. So I will be going over our housing program for the 2021 program, and that's specific to Plumas County, only in Plumas County and related to the Dixie Fire. These programs are managed by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and we have two main program types, our single family reconstruction and our single family mitigation retrofits program. So our single family reconstruction program, or SFR, is for damaged main dwellings as a result of fire, and the single family mitigation retrofits, or SFM. And that's a program for homes that did not sustain damage, but have fire mitigation needs. So these are two separate programs for two different populations. So those whose homes were damaged or destroyed by the disaster in SFR, and those whose homes were not damaged or destroyed, but who live in Plumas County and qualify for funding to mitigate fire damage in the event of a possible future disaster in the mitigation program. A little background on our programs: the HUD has allocated $24.4 million in federal CDBG-DR funds. And if you're not familiar with that, it's Community Development Block Grant, and those are specific for disaster recovery for these programs. And in both our SFR and SFN programs, these are only available in our 2021 HUD designated most impacted and distressed areas of Plumas County. And 100% of these funds must go to low to moderate income beneficiaries. So next slide, please. In our single family reconstruction program, this offers grants of up to $500,000 to eligible homeowners, and that's depending on their unique unmet housing needs. And the program does not issue the funding directly to the homeowner, but instead the program funds the rehabilitation or reconstruction of the disaster damaged home through a construction management vendor that has been already procured by HCD. And so for the most part, these homes must be repaired or reconstructed on the same lot and with substantially the same footprint as the original home. There are some limited exceptions, and that would be in the case of a manufactured housing unit or mobile home park that did not reopen. And in that case, a case manager would work really closely with the homeowner to determine an alternate site. So these homes must be single family structured that are located in Plumas County, and they have remaining reconstruction needs that were not fully covered by insurance, FEMA, or other sources. And again, the program is only available to low to moderate income homeowners who are applying for the reconstruction of their primary residence. But we also have a landlord option, and that would be if a landlord agrees to rent to low to moderate income households. Next slide, please. So when it comes to income qualifications and for the renter option or landlord option, the owner occupant applicant household and the future tenant households of rental property applicants may earn up to 80% of the area median income. And these income, they're established by the federal government and broken down by county. And so this slide will show what the 80% would be for Plumas County. This does need to be adjusted slightly because new numbers came out really recently. Apologize for that. So the best way to know if you qualify, though, is to submit income documents during the application process. And we don't like potential applicant to automatically self-disqualify themselves just by looking at these numbers. The best thing to do would be to submit an application. And so for the landlord applicants, they must agree to rent the property for an agreed upon affordability period, which I'll get into a little bit more later, to tenants with total house incomes at or below 80% AMI. So then this maximum rent is based on the multifamily tax subsidy project regular income rent limits. And so that's effective at the time the lease is up, and it would be inclusive of utilities and based on the bedroom count of the reconstructed home. And so those are the rental limits down here. Next slide, please. So to be eligible for the SFR programs, an applicant must have owned the home in question at the time of the disaster. The homeowner must also be eligible for federal benefits, meaning that they must be a U.S. citizen or qualified alien. The homeowner must be current on their property taxes, and as I was previously mentioning, they must have lived in the home as their primary resident or be a landlord willing to rent to low to moderate income households moving forward. Again, the home must be located in Plumas County and have sustained damage from the Dixie Fire greater than 50% of the pre-disaster value. The home must be a titled single-family dwelling or manufactured housing unit on a fixed pad that is correctly permitted and permissible for a zoning area. So structures that wouldn't be included would be multifamily properties, vacation homes, RVs, and secondary homes. Those would not be eligible for this program. Next slide. So in order to be eligible for, or how award would be determined exactly, is by estimating the remaining repair or reconstruction cost and then subtracting any other funds that are considered duplication of benefits or DOB. And so that refers to funding that is from insurance, government, or charity or other sources that was specific for the home repair or reconstruction. And then if it was for the mitigation program, for the purpose of mitigation. So again, a case manager will work closely with the homeowner to determine what exactly would be DOB. And that amount for the reconstruction program can be up to $500,000. Next slide. So a little bit about our construction process. So the program does manage all aspects of the reconstruction for the homeowner, and it offers 8 different stick-built models that can vary in bed and bath configuration and exterior elevations. The homeowner will select a floor plan for their new home from these models and based on the square footage of their damaged home and current household size. There are other things that the homeowner gets to decide on, which are 3 to 4 options in exterior, interior colors, cabinets and countertops, flooring and appliances. So there are some options there. The program's construction management team will then inspect a property, create a scope of work that covers all the needed repair and reconstruction activities for the homeowner's selections, and include all materials to bring the home up to wildfire prepared home standards and achieve that designation. Contractors then perform the work as defined by that scope, and they are responsible for all environmental review and clearance for a home to meet occupancy requirements before the homeowner would move back in. Next slide, please. So it's very similar to stick-built homes when it comes to manufactured housing units. So the homeowner would select from 4 different MHU models, and that's based on the disaster damaged home square footage and current household size. And again, the construction management team will do the work from the ground up to completion with these as well. The team will purchase and install a new MHU unit for the homeowner and ensure appropriate registration and titling is performed through HUD's Codes and Standards Division. Next slide, please. So after the completion of the rebuild of the reconstruction program, there is a federally required 24-month monitoring period for the owner-occupant applicants, during which the home needs to be owner-occupied as a primary residence during that 24-month period. And for a landlord, they are subject to an affordability period, and this is from 5 to 15 years, and that's based on the amount of the program subsidy. During that affordability period, the home must be rented to a low to moderate income households that are earning below the 80% AMI. There are some insurance and taxes as well required, but that can be explained by a case manager, and it's based on case-by-case basis. So into our second program, that's our single family mitigation retrofits program. This offers grants of up to $50,000 for homeowners who have disaster related mitigation needs on their property. And an important distinction for this program, and the main sticking point here I want to make, is that to be eligible for this program, you do not have to be located in the burn scar of the Dixie Fire. You just need to be located in Plumas County and meet the other eligibility requirements, which I'll get into in a second. And some of the eligibility activities for the program are those that increase the level of protection against wildfires or future disasters, and that would include defensible space and home hardening activities. Next slide, please. So to be eligible for this program, it's very similar to the SFR program. But one factor is that you can have purchased the home after the disaster and still be eligible for this program. And next slide, please. So the program does recognize that the $50,000 for this program may not allow for all necessary tasks, so it has created a level of importance approach, and that is broken down, level 1 being of highest priority down to level 3 in the types of activities that are performed in the SFM program. So for level 1, that would be placing pea gravel under the homes and decks and porch, fire resistant skirting around the home, enclosing the underside of the porch and decks with metal mesh, fire retardant paint to the porch and decks, stump grinding, and hazardous tree removal for the landscaping in zones 0 and 1. Level 2 would be enclosing the gutters with gutter guards, fiber exterior siding, roofing with Class A shingles. And then lastly, if that $50,000 hasn't been exhausted, they would install metal exterior doors and garage doors and dual pane windows. But of course, these are all case by case basis on what the construction management team does determine. Next slide. You can just go to the next one. So a little bit about our application and the program process. So our application is located on an online portal, Neighborly, and that's the website where which Neighborly is located, hcd.ca.gov/recoverca. It says coming soon, but the application is available currently. Case managers are available to help homeowners complete this application and submit all the required documents. There's also fact sheets and DOB explanations and other things available on the website. And next slide. Just quickly, there are a variety of ways in which someone could apply on that Neighborly portal or over the phone with a case manager. We also do have a PDF paper application online that can be printed, or it can be mailed to an applicant as well. Next slide. Thank you. So this is a process map of kind of a timeline of what an applicant can expect from both programs. So after completing an application, a homeowner's eligibility is determined, the site would be assessed, and the scope of work is prepared. The homeowner will receive a grant award and then remit any DOB, if that's applicable to their case, to the program managed escrow account. And then they would sign a construction contract with the program's construction team. And then the construction management team will take care of all permits, construction, and progress inspections. And what we do want to note is from the point of eligibility until when construction or mitigation would be complete can take up to a year. And then the next slide. So here's an overview of what kind of documents we would ask an applicant to gather, and I'll just briefly go through it. So a photo ID, proof of ownership, proof of primary resident at the time of the disaster, and current proof of ownership, and then this would not apply to the landlords. Proof of federal benefits eligibility, proof of current property taxes and payment plan, and proof of income. And then any things that would be considered duplication of benefits. So again, those insurance, FEMA awards, SBA loans, and things like that, and any disaster assistance that's been received. So these are the type of documents that we would encourage someone to gather prior to filling out an application, but of course we can always gather these later. And that's the end of my presentation. I'd love to answer some questions for you.
Any questions?
When this first came out, last month, I went online and set up an account, and I didn't realize that I had started the application process, and now it's been withdrawn. How do I go about getting it set up again?
Good question. If you would like for us to reopen your application, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Just send me an email. If you remember your account ID number, that would be great. But if not, just make sure you give me your name and I can get that reopened for you.
All right, the name's Bill Yahner, Y-A-H-N-E-R.
Y-A-H-N-E-R.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Paula, this is for you, actually. So I know a lot of people already have a disaster case manager, and so that would be easy. But what if you want to do Recover California, but you don't have a disaster case manager?
So Recover California comes with their own disaster case managers. If you wanted somebody from either PRS or MBCSS to guide you and help you with documentation, you can still sign up with either agency. So We are working together with Recover California. They take you through the process, but we are more than well happy to help anyone.
Approximately how long can we expect to wait after we've been I'm eligible. I finished all the paperwork, is what I'm trying to say. About how long might it take before we are awarded if we get it? Yeah, the mitigation. Did you understand any of that?
Yes, you've provided us with the documents and completed the application, and now you want to know how long it might take for you to get your final determination for eligibility or for them to actually start the mitigation process.
Right.
Yes, so once we have all of the required documentation, we will move a person through our eligibility process, and our eligibility process can actually take a few days to maybe like a week or so, just because we have to pull some additional documents, third-party documentation to help verify different things in a person's application. And then there's a 30-day DOB process where we look for any possible duplication of benefits. So all of these, while the intake process where you give us the documentation, we review it to make sure it satisfies the requirements, that usually takes the most time in the beginning, but then there's like the actual verification for eligibility. Once a person gets through the initial eligibility for the applicant, where we check for duplication of benefits, make sure you're the proper owner, and all the other qualifications, then our construction management team will come out and check for property eligibility. So they're going to be doing like an inspection and things like that. So that can take a little bit more time. But generally we aim for, once we receive all of the necessary required paperwork, not just the application itself, but all the supplemental documents, and we go through eligibility, we aim for that process to take about 30 to 60 days. And then a person will move into pre-construction, and then pre-construction, they'll be able to determine if the property is eligible. And then from there, you move into award. So while I would love to be able to give you a standard timeline like Brittany showed in her slide, overall for the program, we're aiming for this to be about a 12-month process. But understanding there might be various things that come into play when we're looking at different properties and different applications that might extend that out a little bit. But it is always good, like they mentioned before, with Recover California, we do have our own case managers. So if you're ever wanting to get an idea of where you are in the process, reach out to your case manager. They'll be able to give you an update that's really specific to you and where your application is. Additionally, if you're using our online system, there's also a part where you can see where you are in the different steps in the program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
How does any amount for awarded on the PG&E settlements affect this?
So we would like to know if you have received a PG&E settlement, then we would like to know, or we may request some paperwork regarding that, just for making sure that we do our due diligence and we're collecting all the necessary things. Right now, the program does not count the wildfire settlements and things as a part against a person's possible DOB or duplication of benefits. But in those types of cases where maybe we do an income review for all of our applicants, just to make sure that they fit into the income guidelines for the program. If you're living off of your PG&E settlement money, then we would need a copy of that, just so that we can make sure that we notate that in your file. But generally that does not count against you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Oh, can I add one little caveat? If you do have So PG&E kind of settlements typically do not count against you for your DOB. However, if you received funds from a different type of lawsuit, maybe an insurance lawsuit or something like that, we would also need that information, and that might count towards your DOB. But again, every application is different. You provide that documentation to our team and we'll review it and keep you posted on what the program needs or what the program's decisions were on those items.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
If you do have or have had a disaster case manager with PRS or NBCSS, we likely have your documents already on file. So if that's a helpful thing, please reach out to either agency. Infrastructure master plan.
Thank you, Paula. Hi, this is Patrick Doherty. It's good to be with you again. I think probably some of you were here at the last DFC community meeting in December where we announced the program. So it's great to be back. We've had a busy few months getting things together. With me on the call here on the video are Mark Mickleby and Tim Smith from the project team. And then in the room with you is Tyler Pugh, whom you all know and love. He's got some paper versions of these slides if anybody wants them at the end of the meeting today. So with that, I'll just jump in. We're excited to give you a preliminary report for feedback purposes. So what we're going to do is just kind of cover why we're here for folks who are not familiar with the project we're doing. And then we'll do an overview of the system that we're contemplating. We'll then jump into each of the 4 core elements of that system: electrical, thermal, water, and wildfire resilience. And then we're going to look at 2 specific programs to help implementation of this that we've been authorized to explore by Indian Valley Community Services District: the microgrid incentive program from PG&E and the community choice aggregation program that's available through California state legislation and managed by the California Public Utility Commission. So with that, if we could go to the next slide. So our work is to make manifest the vision that you all put together through the long-term recovery planning process, specifically around creating a more resilient, the most resilient small town in America, including some utility infrastructure, innovative utility infrastructure that is scaled and affordable for a town like Greenville and the larger Indian Valley community. Go to the next slide. This is building, as I said, on a number of phases of planning that you did. You may remember Tim Smith from that planning process. Tim and his team over at Sarah was part of that. And this is a continuation of Sarah's involvement in this process and accompanying the community through that, working with InfraCenters as the lead. InfraCenters, one of the founding members of InfraCenters is Tim's company, Sarah Architects. So we're excited about being here. And what we're going to do is start to go into some of the ideas that we've pulled together. None of this is set in stone, but we wanted to give you a report after we've had a busy winter of work. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so keeping that vision, your vision, front and center, while balancing the innovation and the practical, we're going to try to present what we're thinking, and we'd love your feedback. Next. Okay. Now, if you're way in the back, you may not be able to read some of these words, but there are 4 main systems that we're really interested in exploring and improving in a way that can work together as a full system. Those are some water system improvements, microgrid or electrical system improvements. This is in front of the meter. This is on the utility side of things. Thermal system improvements. Thermal is like heating and cooling for buildings primarily. And we're looking at different opportunities there. And then down at the bottom, hidden behind the pine trees, is the wildfire resilience framework. You can see that down at the bottom right. If you want, Tyler's, as I said, Tyler's got paper copies. Feel free to grab one. What we're proposing is a integrated system improvement where we capture some of the synergies across water, electricity, thermal, and wildfire resilience to improve the quality of your utility service, improve the resilience of your utility service, and improve the resilience specifically, not on a day-to-day basis, but also in extremis in the event of another wildfire. So we'll go to the next one. We'll jump into the electrical. So what we're proposing is that we take advantage of a PG&E grant program called the Microgrid Incentive Program to build a microgrid system for Greenville, and then you'll see phasing. We want to extend that to the other main community centers in Indian Valley, right? Crescent Mills, Taylorsville, Genesee. But starting with Greenville, to develop a package of generation and storage assets that would be inside the town, solar, battery, biomass, plus a microhydro plant. Microhydro is just, think about hydroelectric power from a dam. You could do it off of a pipe, and we're thinking about it coming off the new pipe coming down from Round Valley Reservoir. This would create energy inside the microgrid district boundary, which is being set for us by PG&E, but it's around most of Greenville. They're still adjusting the boundary based on the undergrounding process. That's what's determining the boundary lines, the undergrounding of the distribution lines, as you've all been watching. And this would provide everything, all the customers, electrical customers inside that boundary with energy if the power, if they shut off the power to the main, the single distribution line that comes in to the valley. And it would maintain that power at a minimum of up to 24 hours, but potentially longer depending on our generation sources and the fuel behind them and how sunny it is. That's the kind of the basic concept. It's a microgrid as a district that can be closed off from the larger PG&E grid and continue to provide service when otherwise high fire threat day, PG&E would have shut off the lights. What we hope to do is then extend that service to additional communities further downstream in the valley from the distribution coming in, and provide that additional resilience. Go to the next slide. On the thermal systems, you'll see biomass here, right? Biomass is basically a wood-burning generator, and a wood-burning generator will generate both heat and electricity. The electricity is being used on the microgrid side, but we can utilize that heat for a variety of things. You can use it for a manufacturing process, but in this case, we're thinking about using it for heating and potentially cooling homes or resident or commercial operations. In addition, Greenville has geothermal hot springs, and we also have ground-based geothermal available anywhere where you have ground. So it's pretty widely available, and this would potentially provide lower cost heating and cooling for any of the buildings that are connected to a system. Now, being upfront, the district system for heating and cooling is putting that infrastructure in is going to be fairly expensive. It can become economical depending if we have a lot of construction happening at once, where anybody who's building rebuilding a commercial operation in particular, wants to connect. If that's the case, if the timing works out, it may work. Otherwise, the thermal solutions may just serve individual buildings like the new IVCSD headquarters or the high school. And we're in conversations with IVCSD, obviously, who's our part of our sponsor, the high school, with Rancheria, with a lot of other commercial operations to explore whether or not this would be interesting. Okay, next. On the water system, you can see we've got blue water and we got purple water. We're not going to touch the blue water. Blue water, domestic use, district, the kind of district fire suppression, the sprinkler system. We're not going to touch that. We don't want to, if we're going to use Round Valley Reservoir for this source, we don't want to make the potable water system dirty. And so what we're thinking about is, since the Round Valley Reservoir is no longer providing the potable water for Greenville, using that for additional resilience, additional energy production, and some economic opportunities for IVCSD to lower the costs of your utilities generally. In particular, the microhydro opportunity is to put a electrical generator in the 12-inch pipe that's coming down and have that gravity pulled water power generator and create electricity. That would have to go into a storage tank, probably where the old storage tanks used to be. And then that could be pumped back up to the reservoir so we don't deplete the resource up there. It'd be pumped back up when the cost of electricity is cheaper. So we generate up peak hours and then pump it back up lower hours, and then we'd make the owner of the asset would make some money in the in between. So then, in addition, that tank can then be connected to some critical downstream uses. One, fire suppression, right? So this wouldn't necessarily be connected to the full fire hydrant system because that's right now tied into the potable system, and it would likely be prohibitively expensive to convert your entire fire hydrant system to non-potable use. However, we are looking to identify locations where we can put a non-potable hydrant or standpipe that can be used to fill tankers, to connect hoses for direct firefighting, or in blue sky operations when you're not fighting a fire, or commercial operations where IVCSD can sell commercial water to construction teams who need to fill up their tanker truck with water to do their construction job. In addition, the recovery plan anticipates a few new park settings, some green space, and this water could be used to irrigate that and save the potable for humans. Okay, go to the next slide. And finally, we've been working with the Sierra Institute to figure out, and the U.S. Forest Service, to figure out what might be a wildfire resilience framework to create a defensive line around the human settlements in the Plumas National Forest, right, in the Indian Valley. And we've identified these kind of general lines where we've got a primary management zone, a secondary management zone. In those zones, you'd want to have a much more active course of forest management activities, clearing brush, reducing the fuel load, but also potentially prescribed or cultural burnings to reduce the likelihood of fire coming into the communities. What's exciting is that we have the possibility of paying for that work through the purchase of fuel for the biomass energy generators, because the brush and scrub that they're going to be pulling out of the forest is exactly the kind of stuff we'd want to chip up, dry out, and then put into the biomass generator. And so what we're looking at is a a way of creating jobs, taking care of the forest, protecting the community, while also providing energy and heating, electricity and heating to the community. Go to the next slide. While most of what we're doing is putting out some ideas for the community, the Indian Valley Community Services District, Adam Cox and his team, and we've been consulting, we've been briefing the board over there as well, have asked us to produce an application for PG&E's microgrid incentive program. That program is funded, California, the state of California gets a total of 200 million. Of that, PG&E is allocated 87.2 million. And then if you can see down, there's an orange box and a purple box in the bottom left. There's two chunks of money there. One is for the microgrid equipment. That would be the primary assets of the microgrid. And then that's 14 million per project, and then 3 million per project for the network upgrades that PG would need to put in place in order to work with the Greenville microgrid. What we've identified as a package of 3 kind of core microgrid assets and a control system, including solar, battery storage using lithium batteries, and then a biomass facility. That would fit within the $14 million price tag, including the microgrid control system, and a boundary working with PG&E that would fit within the $3 million price tag for the network upgrades that would be required for the utility to manage it. That's really exciting. Greenville's in a really good place because of PG&E's complicity in the fire to be able to kind of be in the front of this. We can't guarantee that Greenville's going to win, but we think we've got a pretty good shot, and we've got a great electrical engineer consultant on this who's doing a couple of these. We've got a great relationship with PG&E on putting this forward, and we're really hopeful that we might win this one. And if we can, if you go to the next slide, what we'd like it to do is be the first phase of extending microgrids out to Crescent Mills, to Taylorsville, and to Genesee eventually. One thing we learned in the process of crunching the numbers is that 3 Greenville-size microgrid systems, in terms of the energy and storage requirement, would cover the load from the entire Indian Valley Community Services District area. So that orange map that you see is the IBCSD footprint. And 3 of them would cover all the needs for the community under, basically in a regular year, a typical year. If that's the case, we may be able to create a community choice aggregator, which normally has high front-end costs, which require a larger population to be served than the Indian Valley community. But in this case, we would have 1/3. Let's say if we needed 3 Greenville-sized packages of energy, we'd have 1/3 of the capital requirements taken care of, paid for by PG&E. And so our unit cost for generating energy would be low enough that we think we may be able to economically start and maintain a community choice aggregator. And that's the next slide. If you go to the next slide, please. So community choice aggregator, as I said, is a program that was created by state legislation and is managed by the California Public Utilities Commission. And it allows a community to make its own choice about where it gets its power and how much it pays. Generally, it's looking for buying that energy from within the community, keeping those dollars at home, keeping jobs in the local community, and then improving the quality of that energy, having it come from local sources, be cleaner, et cetera. And then that keeps those dollars circulating in the community, but it also creates the economics for the microgrid to be operated and maintained over time, and for any of those future phases of microgrids, even if we have to, if we need private funds to build those, the Crescent Mills and Taylorsville, Genesee microgrids, the CCA would provide the contract to buy that energy over a 20-year time frame and allow any of those private developers to build those systems and operate them over that 20-year time frame. So we're looking at that. If we create the microgrid, it would be IVCSD is the applicant, and it would be the owner of the microgrid. The community choice aggregation, we'd have to create, IVCSD would create a separate entity with its own board, but it would be a creature of IVCSD. And right now we're proposing all this stuff with the full kind of knowledge of the county, just presented to them yesterday. They like the direction we're going in. Again, nothing has been decided, except that we're developing the application for the MIP program. Go to the next slide. Just so you know, CCAs are not a flash in the pan. Over 200 cities in California and 14 million customers are being served by CCAs. It's started in 2017 in California, but it's a pretty well-oiled machine at this point. And as a result, there are some contractors that can help lower the cost for a community like Greenville to be able to provide the various services. As a CCA, you need to be able to purchase energy on the open market in case one of your generation facilities goes down. You need to be able to account for that, and you need to do billing. Obviously, you need to do community customer service, and we could outsource that. So a relatively small, 3, 4, 5 person office running the CCA could manage the contracts to help this thing get off the ground and really leverage the power of Indian Valley. So I think that might be my last slide. It is. Happy to take questions, but thanks for having us here today.
Any questions?
That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. So, yeah. So if you put in the application, about how long will it take to hear if you get it or not?
Sure. So they just extended the application submission deadline to June. It was this past Friday, and they moved it out to June because PG&E is learning as they go. Once they'll take about 2 months, so let's say June to maybe August, September, they'll make a decision whether or not you've made it into the program. At that point, you go into the development phase, in which all the engineering gets really locked down. That could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Again, they're still trying to figure this out, so they're giving it a good long window to get that done. Once you've done the engineering and they can approve it, then you're good to go to move into construction. Construction on something of this size would probably take no more than 6 months, assuming all the permits and approvals are in place. So what we want to be doing during that period, once we get once IVCSD gets a positive word that the proposal is going forward, then IVCSD would want to initiate the formation of the CCA, the Community Choice Aggregator, so that the two move out in parallel. Again, Tyler has some slides if you want to think about this. In addition, if you're interested in doing a little bit more of a deep dive, we're happy to set up a Zoom call with our engineers and experts if you wanted to ask follow-on questions. Tyler will get your emails, and then we'll collectively find a good time to go deeper if anybody's interested. In the meantime, rest assured we're working with IVCSD, with the county, with Patrick Joseph at DFC, make sure that all this works. And we're working with local experts like Sierra Institute, to make sure it fits within the within the vision that you all have set for your community.
Okay, just one more question. Did you hear from PG&E if there's gonna be undergrounding from Greenville to Crescent Mills? I know when we last spoke, that was like unknown.
Yeah, so not in time for the first round is the short answer. It's very possible too that that they may I'm trying to characterize very little information for you. Part of Crescent Mills is not classified as a high fire risk area. And so it could apply for a separate that portion of Crescent Mills, and I can't tell you how much of it is, that it would qualify, but not all of Crescent Mills is in that. Some of it is served by that same distribution line that has yet to be undergrounded. And the IVCSD asked if we would just focus on Greenville right now so that they can get familiar with what it means to own and operate a microgrid, and then extend in future phases, either through the MIP program or through commercial development, something for Crescent Mills. So we'd want to do that as soon as possible, but right now, the IVCSD asked us to just keep the boundary to Greenville for this first round.
One more question.
Could you just review the specific funder under PG&E and the application amount?
Sure. Could you go back to that slide that has them? I'll tell you when. That one. Good. So it's a federal program that California got $200 million of. PG&E, the independent operating utilities, that's that IOU, independent operating utilities divided out that 200 million. PG&E got 87.2, and they're going to make grants that are up to a total of 17 million per microgrid system per project. And then that's divided $14 million for the hard equipment, and then $3 million for the network upgrades that that PG&E would need to put in place in order to island to kind of isolate the microgrid in the event of a fire or other kind of black sky event. Did that answer your question, Pam?
Yes.
Great.
So just to reiterate, at printouts, just so you know, they didn't print everything correctly. There's black on some of them. I'm happy to email a PDF to anyone. The sign-up sheet, if you're interested in a specific program like water or electricity or all of the above. And we're happy to schedule a meeting to talk to the engineers and deep dive. Want to make sure this is a ton of information, and it's a very holistic look at resiliency planning. So we want to get some time for you to absorb it, ask questions, and yeah. So run over after.
Thanks, Tyler.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. Feather River Resource Conservation District. Michael Hall.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Hall. I'm the district manager at Feather River RCD. I'm here to give an update on tree clearing and tree planting for the entire Dixie area. So next slide, please. Just a little background on this program. This is the EFRT, the Emergency Forest Restoration Team program. It's funded primarily through CAL FIRE, but also through the USDA. It is a no-cost program to private, non-industrial landowners to do fire recovery, including tree removal, reforestation, and brush control. Qualifiers are you need to be a landowner within Plumas County in the footprint of a fire that happened since 2020. And then we prioritize areas within the wildland urban interface, near communities and infrastructure, and then how severe the fire burnt. If you have full tree mortality, those rank a little higher in the process. The program is also meant to treat forested lands beyond what would have been in defensible space or near a utility line. It's a larger, forest landscape treatment program. And the reason we're doing this is because those are areas that otherwise really wouldn't fall into the purview of another assistance program. And so we want to get dead trees and fuel off the landscape and green trees back in the ground. Next slide, please. Currently, we sit at 354 people have enrolled, and this is countywide. So far, 116 folks have received services. When I say services, mostly that's referring to tree clearing and planting. We phase this. A reforestation project is, generally between 2 and 3 years old. Or that's how long it takes to get trees back in the ground. So everyone's kind of in a different state of receiving a different type of service through us. Coming up in 2024, we've got another 80 on the docket. Most of those are out in Eastern Plumas in Dixie Valley to Frenchman Lake area, but we do have a fairly substantial number here in Indian Valley as well as up in Chester and Warner Valley. Just over 2,000 acres of tree clearing, 106,560 trees were planted last spring. Most of those were around Indian Valley. And then we just put 63,000 trees in the ground this past spring. Next. This is kind of a difficult to see map, a vicinity map. Again, like I said, we have different phases of moving through things. There's tree clearing, there's the layout phase, there's the planting phase, there's brush control. And so color coding, this is kind of where we've been focusing our work. You can see a lot of clusters around Greenville, big one in Yellow Creek, Tasmanquam, and then our other big cluster has been up in Chester and Warner Valley. Next slide. So a little more zoomed in on Indian Valley. I'm hoping to provide some context. So as you see folks, working up there, a lot of those are private, non-industrial landowners in the program. I see some faces here that are in the program as well. And so hoping to provide some context to what's happening up there. Next slide. So the foreseeable future, we're sitting pretty healthy with our budget. We think we can serve every person who has enrolled to date. We'll be working on this program until 2026 at the earliest. I foresee it going further into 2027, 2028. We're starting to have problems with what to do with trees as we cut them. Chip sales are fickle, they don't always come through. Log sales are basically non-existent anymore. So we're looking at alternatives like incinerators to burn on site to get rid of material. Some on-site shipping, although we prefer not to do that. So we're trying to get clever. There will be some mastication projects happening on Williams Valley Road, Upper Pex, and Power Line Road this year as well. And we do mastication on those properties generally when we can't get like a chip truck in, or we just have other hardships getting material off. Other issues that we're trying to mitigate are with the 2021 wildfire season being so drastic. There's a real big shortage of seedlings for reforestation. So we're having a hard time getting our hands on enough area and zone appropriate seed to replant. And yeah, as we get further from the fire, we may have to go back and do some preliminary survey work, which also can slow the process down. But rest assured, we are continuing with the plan. Next slide. Some things you'll start seeing from us in the future, you'll start seeing forestry technicians out on properties that have been planted. Some of those may be your own. And what they're looking for is seedling survival, residual down woody fuel that's left, and then any, brush or other vegetation that's coming up in the years following. And the goal for this, it's a program through UC Berkeley, is to establish a post-fire monitoring protocol that can be used through CAL FIRE, through the Forest Service and other agencies as these things continue to happen, so we can, everyone can talk to each other more coherently, and we have a system in place for seeing how well post-fire work is progressing. And then my last offering is we have a new program with the Natural Resource Conservation Service to go out, work with landowners, write a forest management plan, and help folks get enrolled in the Conservation Stewardship Program, which will provide funding to landowners to do certain practices, planting pollinator gardens, native forbs and grasses, installing bat boxes, or more fuels reduction, defensible space type of work. Things that we're not able to fund with this program, we can help, develop a plan and an application for you so you can get your own additional funding. And that program is live on our website. We're taking applications. We're writing plans right now. You'll see if you go to frrcd.org, there's two links. One is a post-fire restoration link, and then the other is Conservation Stewardship Program. You can do both. We encourage both to happen, but the new one is Conservation Stewardship. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Crescent Mills has a logging thing there. They love trees. What's the thing with getting them to get those trees?
Plenty of logs have gone to Crescent Mills. I neglected to mention that. In the early years, I believe most of the logs at Crescent Mills came from these projects.
And they'll continue?
If they want them, they're deteriorating pretty quick. Yeah, but if they want them, they can take them. We have a good relationship, working with the Pews to get wood there as much as they need.
So we're involved in your program as well. Quite a few of our cedars are still in really good shape, and I'm hearing from the local mills that they really need cedar. So hopefully some of that can go to like the Crescent Mills and Bonkyo and the other mills in the area. The other question is, I'm starting to have some people who are interested in harvesting logs because they say there's a real need for them on the property. If they're not commercially viable for you, because primarily I've been preserving them for your program so that you can offset costs, can I allow some of these people to come in and do that work?
You should do that before we step foot on there to keep it clean. If you're gonna commercialize logs for yourself, you should do that first.
I wouldn't be commercializing. I would just allow people to salvage.
We should talk offline. It gets messy with our permits.
So I have two questions. So when you're planting out new seedlings, how many seedlings are you doing per acre? And the second question is, what's the problem with masticating or grinding up the trees and just leaving the wood chips in the forest? Like, why do you have to take it out and do all that?
Seedling question is we're doing about 125 to 150 per acre. That works out to about 16, 17 foot spacing between trees. We plant in clusters, not always in rows, but will vary just depending on the request. The mastication question is just because it's just fuel rearranged and left on site. It can and will burn in the future. So if we can reduce that now, that's what we're gonna try to do. That said, we do a fair amount of mastication, sometimes just to clear the way so we can get the bulk of the material out.
So we've had our trees removed and you've planted new trees. I'm concerned, I heard you talk about brush control. So can you help us with any plans for brush control in the future as these little tiny trees start growing?
Yeah, we'll use an herbicide application. We're trying to do just one. We have a good list of properties that we will be spraying this spring. It takes us a little longer to organize those because not only do we have our CEQA permitting from CAL FIRE, but we also have our county permitting to go through those. And if you have not been contacted by someone about opting into that service, you should reach out and we can get you added.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for leaving the trees that have fallen and the stumps across behind the Legion Hall. We're right across the street, and winter before, we had all that red clay in our yard. So you did good by keeping the stumps and the trees up there. But I believe that you said previously that they couldn't get the red clay to take seedlings. Is there any chance of getting that somewhat cleaned up and replanted?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we couldn't. We will try to get trees in there. It might not be as productive for them to grow. We might have some higher mortality, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't try.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. If you could hold your questions till the end, we have a fairly long agenda today, but we will give you a chance to ask. Summer Youth Design and Build Program, and Ross McCarthy is online.
Great, thanks, Paula. Hi, everyone. My name is Ross McCarthy. A bunch of you may have met me last summer during the Rebuild internship program, where myself and Tyler developed and ran the summer internship. And in addition to that, I'm an architect. I also teach architecture at a number of different colleges in San Francisco. And I also teach architecture in a high school. And I think the first time I worked in Greenville was with a Kid Mob program about 9 years ago with Tyler and Sue at the Indian Valley Academy. And so, yeah, thank you. So next slide, please. And so the first thing I'd like to kind of talk about is one aspect of the internship program from last year was the Kid Mob workshop we ran. And so at the beginning of summer, I ran a 3-day workshop with Indian Valley Academy students where students looked at kind of documenting memories in Greenville and thinking about what we call future memories, and then trying to think about how you could kind of memorialize all these things in an architecture project. And so that's what we worked on. So next slide. And so here is the ACE team of individuals who were working on this project. I'm sure you recognize them all. And also additionally, some of the interns who worked with me. And so immediately I was totally blown away by these students and how brilliant they are, intelligent, and kind of eager they were to be involved in designing something. And so I think I remember Amaya pulling me aside and saying, you know, all of these projects we're working on here are really fun and interesting, But at the same time, the most important thing to rebuild in this town is the softball field. And what are you doing to help with that? And I didn't know what to say. And Amaya told me that, you know, we need this much dirt, this many people, and this much time to rebuild it. So can we start? And I didn't know what to say. And so because it was such great questions, I was kind of totally taken aback. And she won me over that it probably was more important. And so anyway, when I managed to kind of refocus towards the program we were working on at the time, the students worked on creating some really amazing things. And so next slide. And so one of the ideas they came up with was trying to kind of create a memory circle where these 6 aspects of Greenville culture, which they identified, would be kind of heralded. And so youth, logging, natural beauty, ranching, Maidu culture, and community were kind of all the center to their design, where through different wood carvings, they could have all these elements of culture surrounding a conversation pit. And it was just a really amazing project that they led, and really imaginative and creative. And so next slide. The next thing they worked on was also a kind of memory map. I may have not added that slide in there, but I'll tell you about it anyway, where they kind of documented all these memories and then met with the town in an exhibition where maybe some of you were lucky enough to see the work that they did. And I think one of the most impactful things to me about that process was how eager local youth were at being part of the rebuild project or the rebuild process, and how much ability they had to actually input things. And so stemming on from that, I've worked on creating a program for this summer where IVA students will design and actually get to build something in the town. And so there's a class that's already happening in the California College of Arts where students are focused on creating a kind of a kit of parts where youth builders could actually use that kit of parts to build a structure out of wood. And that structure would be very small, non-permanent structure. And so what that class is not, it's not a design class where the California College of the Arts have an input in what the design would look like. And so I'm working on creating a program where IVA students will actually get to design and build something. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. And so through collaborating with tribal members and also the Rotary Club, in particular, I've been talking with Trina Cunningham and Kes Porter. I've understood that the Rotary are interested, and Kes Porter in particular, are interested in creating a visitor center, which would be a small wooden structure, or maybe not wooden structure initially, but we would be building a wooden structure that this visitor center would, if people came to Greenville, they would have an idea of what the town was about. And so we're calling it an early win structure, because being able to design something that doesn't have to go through a lengthy planning process is a big part of the goal here. And so then also incorporating Maidu culture into that architecture is another really important aspect. And so all of this would create a kind of design education program and an opportunity for local youth to have a kind of sense of ownership in the rebuild process. So next slide. And so the first phase would be an IVA architecture class that's happening from May 16th to 28th, where students and it's run by me and Sue Weber, where students would create designs for this early win project. And we'll also have advisors coming in to kind of help guide some of the students' ideas, such as Trina Cunningham and Cass Porter. And so students would look to design the project and then also have an opportunity for tribal exchange. And so that would be the first phase. And then the second phase is, next slide, is where there would be a design workshop where students would kind of identify a successful design and also a viable design. And so myself and 2 design interns would help shape that student design into a buildable project. And we would create construction drawings, documents, and prepare for actual construction, making sure that the essence of the student's design is still the main driving force and that it will actually be buildable. And so then the final phase of the workshop, next slide, please, would be the build workshop. And so then in the first 2 weeks of July, these students would actually get to build their project. And so we're initially thinking that the project could be based in the spot, but it's important to note that part of being a unpermitted structure is that it would have to be kind of small enough to not require a permit, but also be on wheels and be movable. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be at the spot, but these students, along with design professionals, and then also volunteers who have experience in construction, would create this project in a 2-week process. And so that's the idea for the overall program. And again, I'm really passionate about trying to offer local youth an opportunity to be involved in the process, especially stemming on from the Kid Mob workshop last summer. And I think they have a huge amount of talent to offer. And so if anybody is interested in being involved, last year I didn't really get the word out for the Kid Mob workshop out early enough, so trying to not do that same thing this summer. And so if anyone's interested in getting involved, please do contact me. I'll put my email address in the chat, and it would be great to hear your thoughts. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Way Station project, Tyler.
Hi, everyone. It's been a couple months, so excited to see your faces again. The couple months have not been quiet. It's definitely been a lot has been happening on multiple different fronts. One of the most exciting ones for me is getting to move outside of the strategic and starting to get into the implementation. So the actual projects themselves is really, really exciting for myself. So first want to share deep appreciation for all of the business owners and homeowners that are building projects and actively moving forward. It takes an entire village to build a town, kind of thing. And everyone moving and building their projects is helping build back the community as a whole. With that, I want to show deep and express deep appreciation for my clients, who is Kira and Tanya Wattenberg, who purchased the way station after the fire with the intentions of rebuilding it. That's a pretty ambitious goal. And we're very fortunate that these 2 individuals that grew up in this area care deeply about it and are bringing in the resources and knowledge and expertise and things like that to build one of the core 4 Corners projects. So with that, they've hired Elemental P, which is my firm, to do the design and project management work of this project. So we've been working since November on this project and looking at different configurations and how it could look. And the next slide. What we're really looking at and the conceptual basis is they own a few properties in the downtown. And so we really wanted to look at it from a master plan level that we could incorporate all of the town center work and what we heard from the community around the role of public space, corridors, green spaces, places to gatherings, places for kids, things like that. So we came up with an initial kind of master plan. Phase 1, which is the way station down here on 89 and Main Street. That's the core anchor building. That's our phase 1. But our goal is that we could envision additional buildings around it so that we rebuild kind of the downtown center. When we work on architectural projects, we think about it from a conceptual level. Like, what are our guiding principles as we make decisions around space, material, things like that? And after a bunch of work, this top left image came up around the conceptual basis of a constellation. A constellation is made up of series of independent points that pull together and tell one unifying story or like reference one image. Our community is that in a lot of ways. We had an eclectic different points around the town that come together and tell one story. And so this idea of a constellation about bringing the talents and expertise within our community, the artists and creatives within our community, the different materials that we have all together towards building this building was the conceptual basis. That's the concept we came up with. And the idea is that this building would not just be the constellation itself, but would be one point as the community rebuilds itself in this greater constellation that is happening. So that left-hand image, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a safe that was pulled out of the way station that's on the top as one of the points. There's Mavis's carved horse on the top right. The way station itself. Now bear with me. The elephant is Kira Loves Burning Man. And that is a beautiful art sculpture that is coming from Burning Man. And so imparting this client into this constellation as we're imparting each of our community members into this concept. We also were very, very clear that we wanted to honor the past and move into the future. It's a hard tension, right? It's like, how do we acknowledge thousands of years when we're talking about our tribal community or Maidu community, hundreds of years if we're talking about the town center and how it was defined. How do we start to pull those together and actually move into a future? What does that look like, and how does that manifest itself into an architectural project? It's a very complicated problem, but one worthy of like thinking about. And so we included the history, the image of the original or the building there, which was the way station building, with the original brick facade that was on front of it. So if we go to the next slide, this is an architectural render of what it looks like. It's in process. We're drawing up the engineering documents right now. A couple changes from this render is we may or may not have the dormers, which are the windows that pop out here on the right-hand side. But most importantly, we discussed a lot about the history of the facade. Do we take the facade off? Do we add a new facade on the brick as it is? Like, what do we do with it? And we really wanted to honor the history of it. And that's also one of our clients, Tanya. Tanya has her PhD in historical preservation. And we are so uniquely positioned that way. This is, again, the constellation. Like, we have all these points, and it's just amazing. Most of the time, we would not have that brick left, to be honest. And I know some people don't understand why it's worth preserving it, or, you know, just demo it and move forward kind of thing like that. But that brick is a tool for storytelling. It's a tool for attraction and recreation. It's a tool for people coming in and visiting. And it's also a tool to honor and keep our past here. So through Tanya's merciless work, it was not easy by any means, was able to preserve, and many other community members that were advocating for it and things like that, we were able to preserve the brick, and so we wanted to honor that. And so with that, we also want to honor the original facade, which was brick all the way up to the top. And so we're building that right at the front there. We're maintaining the brick basically around 12 foot or so. We're gonna give it a little bit of a haircut to make it uniform, is basically it, and then build upon that a second story. The images here are really around the finished details and kind of the aesthetics that we're looking for. If you go to the next slide. The program, as it's called, like what's in the space, the floor plan, consists of a second floor that has two-bedroom apartments up there with a little patio area. And then, as we're calling it, the VIP area for Gold Diggers Day kind of thing, which is an upstairs area that looks over Main Street. And then a double height in the front area. On the ground floor is a restaurant and bar. And our goal with that is that the restaurant and bar really operated well together. So they actually sit like opposite sides. So the chef and the bartender can kind of engage with each other, as well as the customers can sit between those two places, really building space. And then also we have a cellar room, bourbon bar is what we're calling it. So we're going to go down and have some spaces for dining and drinking and music downstairs. Each of the spaces, we kind of have a little bit different feeling and materiality to it. And then if you go to, I think that's it. That's it. So with that, I have a model here that our team had put together. I have the drawing sets if you'd like to review it. And then we have a VR walkthrough that we had done with a client that you can see the space as we move through. So I don't have the goggles here. You'll have to see it on the computer, maybe in the future. But I'm really excited about this, and hopefully you are too. Another project, great project in this constellation as we rebuild the community. Thank you.
Mobile business recruitment for this podcast.
Thank you. So this actually goes together pretty well with the presentation you heard earlier about the wildfire resiliency program. If you look around on our hills, you realize that the trees that burned and died up there are still sitting there if they're on national forest property. And so I've written a petition. If you would like to sign it, it's sitting on the back table, and I'm collecting as many signatures as I can get. There are 7 points here that I'd like to express, and then you can read the whole thing if you like back there on the table. But basically, starting with the fire, it happened 3 years ago this summer, and the risk of high intensity fire increases as burned trees are not removed. So over the years, that the intensity of the fire that would come next goes up. After that, areas that experience intense fires take much longer for the ground, or excuse me, for the forest to recover, because the ground becomes hydrophobic. So it doesn't hold the water, and it's much harder to get those saplings to grow if we get an intense fire. Next after that is that generally the dead trees lose their commercial value. We've been told over the years that after about 3 years, they just aren't worth taking down. We heard that again from Michael a few minutes ago. So 3 years is coming up. It needs to happen soon if they're to have commercial value. Next, tree removal now will minimize the cost of firefighting should a fire come through, and minimize hazard reductions, and minimize property loss in the future if we get a fire down here close to town. So another fire is preventable. Another fire coming through through the town is preventable, and would be a real tragedy if it happened. The final piece to know is that the Forest Service has been given $275 million to reduce the fire hazards in the Plumas National Forest. That's being used now to treat an area over around Quincy, which is great over around Quincy, but it's not happening around here. So this petition is asking the Forest Service and our senators and representatives to put some money in here and help us to clean up the forest around here to make it safer for our community. If that resonates with you, please sign the petition at the back of the room before you leave. Next. That was good, but so I'm not sure if this is starting a rumor or taking care of a rumor that's already started, but there's a rumor out there that Sherry and I bought the spot. That actually is partially true. So what happened there is that John Red for 3 years now has generously allowed people to have their food trailers on his property without paying any kind of rent. And at this point, so he had the music store there on that corner. At this point, he just isn't able to continue to do that. So it was a matter of either charging rent or selling the property. And so Sherry and I did buy that little corner of the property so that we can continue to have food trailers there without having them pay rent. They still have to pay their insurance and their utilities. But we did buy the corner. Cassie still owns where the spot is, where the greenhouse is, where the thrift store is. So we didn't get all of that. But those are the facts. So hopefully the rumors out there can be true rumors rather than something else. And part of why I'm telling you that is because those 3 carports that we put in are standing empty. And so we're still searching. We have some leads and we may have some food trailers coming back. But while Tyler works at getting this town rebuilt, we want to provide, and the reason for the spot is to provide services for people who are living here and building here to make it attractive now. And we're working, and you'll see with the canopy project, to try to make it as attractive as possible downtown so that people want to stop here. So if you know of anybody, or if you have any interest in having a mobile business, whether it's a food trailer or a hair salon or whatever, please tell Sherry or tell me and help us to provide services in Greenville while we're waiting for people like Tyler to get the whole place rebuilt so it can be our town again. All right, thank you.
The AU House, John.
As you know, the first Saturday of every month, we have open house at AU House, and we have music, and we have food, and we have fun. So I just want to remind everybody that we're continuing to do that. We will continue to do that. And so you're all invited. I also wanted to extend to everyone an invitation to that now that the bank has been remodeled, and everybody that was meeting there is now having to meet in the kitchen. If that's kind of cramping your style and you're kind of feeling like you maybe need a bigger space or whatever, that the AU House is open to everyone at no charge. And we're more than happy to accommodate anybody who wants to have a meeting or a birthday party or anything, anytime. I'm going to put my card with my phone number on the front door. And so you can stop by and you can call me and we can try to get you on the calendar. And it's gonna kind of be first come, first serve. So if it looks like you're gonna wanna move your meeting and start meeting at AU House, please give me a call and I'll get you onto the calendar, and we'll get your meeting moved over so that you guys will have some more room. So, and if you want to take a tour, if you haven't been by there and you want to see what it looks like or whatever, just give me a call and I'll meet you down there and you can take a look. But it's really nice, you know, to have a kitchen and all of that. And we do have space in the back too. So now that we have a little bit nicer weather, you can meet out on the back deck, and it's pretty nice out there. So anyway, just make sure that, you know, KD is nice enough to give it to us as kind of a community center. So please make use of it because it's really a valuable thing for us. So hope to see you there. So anyway.
So, come back. It's still you.
Okay, next hat. Next hat. I just wanted to give you some updates for North Valley Catholic Social Services. We were present with PRS for the intake day for Recover California. And we did want to make sure that everybody knows that if you do have a case manager through PRS or NDCSS, we're kind of a liaison with Recover California. We can sit down with you since we've already probably taken a lot of the paperwork that you've already submitted. And we can go through those kinds of things with the list and kind of get you lined up for what you need to do to get your application in and kind of work with them. And since they're not here and they're not seeing your situation, and they, especially with mitigation, and they haven't seen your property, and we can go out and walk the property with you and take a look at it and see what you've got going on and how that mitigation program might be able to work for you. So we can be, you know, a little bit more of a hands-on and situational help for you. And see if that is going to be something that's valuable for you. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be, especially with all the rules that we have now for trying to get insurance. This can be really valuable for you to be able to get insurance because those rules are getting to be really horrible. So anyway, it was a really valuable day for us, and anybody that did not get the opportunity, you can call PRS or you can get a hold of me or whatever if you don't have a case manager, and we can get you signed up and get you somebody that can be a liaison for you with this program, because it's kind of overwhelming to begin with, but once you get in it, it's just another bunch of forms that you got to fill out. So we want to make sure that you've got everything. You only have to do it once. So and I wanted to tell you that we are participating in the Arbor Day event. We have an event coming up on the 26th here at the spot. It'll be a dedication of the Canopy Project. They're going to have an office opening up at the spot. So we'll be there. We'll have a booth there. And we will be offering some gas cards. So if you want to come by and put in your name and see if you can get a gas card, we'll be giving those away. And we'll be working in conjunction with the school, sending home some little things for the kids for Arbor Day, some little pots with some seeds and things like that, so they can get involved in the idea of planting and growing and what it's all about. So we like to make sure that if you get a chance that you come by, they'll be giving away trees. I'm not sure, last count, I think it was like 20,000 seedlings that they have. So there'll be trees available at the Arbor Day event, and there'll be also a mixer for the chamber that will be later on during that day. So come on by. Also, I just wanted to give you a little report that unmet needs funding for the survivors. We helped pay for propane for someone who needed some propane, $450. We also had a one-time assistance for some people that were needing some food. So we got them a gift card for $300. Someone else needing gas, $250. And so this makes a total of $1,000 that was provided through unmet needs. These kinds of little things don't seem like much, but to somebody who has nothing, especially food and gas, those kinds of things can mean everything to you, especially if you have children. You know, so that's what these programs, PRS and MECSS are here for, is to make sure that people make it through these months, you know, that are really tough for a lot of people, you know, and it's ongoing. I don't care when the fire happened, we're still, you know, working through this. And it's, you can ask the people in Paradise, they're still working through it, and it's been many, many years. So it's an ongoing thing. So anyway, if you still need a case manager, you haven't gotten one yet, you know, things change and people's lives change. We're here for you. And we're more than happy to help you in any way that we can. And you're our people. So we love you and we want to be there for you.
All right, Plymouth National Forest Protect and Recover Project. Joe Hoffman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I just got one slide to share today. I thought this would provide some good context on the forest program beyond the burned areas. And pretty timely, actually, because Kes mentioned the 275 million that's being spent on projects. It's not just around Quincy, it's other areas, but this is kind of the stuff we've been working on the last year and a half, 2 years. And when I've been here, I've mostly been talking about this project up here, the North Fork project. That's a planning project, NEPA planning. It goes all the way up to Canyon Dam, all the way down to Belden, up North Arm, around Greenville, of course, Taylorsville, the Crescent Mills, Indian Falls, Seneca. So that's where we're focusing our NEPA effort for, you know, the activities I've talked about before here, reforestation, clearing the trees that are burned, and trying to broaden it too for community support. Like we got some recreational trails proposed. We've got recreation site improvements. We're working with the tribes to try to incorporate, you know, the cultural needs and considerations. Also looking at fire resiliency, some like permanent fuel breaks around communities that we can maintain. Primarily probably for burning, but also for using when the next fire comes. So you've heard me talk about that a lot. So that's the North Fork project here. Similar project in on this side, and it's probably more like here, the Red Clover and Little Grizzly Creek drainages. And I can't remember how far up it goes up to here, but anyway, if it's pink here, it means that there's a NEPA planning project. That's the Tributaries project. That's the one that Plumas Corp is helping us with. So real quick, the update there is that there's going to be a draft environmental assessment out for this North Fork project. We'll probably get it out with Sierra Institute's help, probably about mid-May. So that's a 30-day comment period. And that's exciting because that's a huge endeavor. These are huge projects. This is not like the scale that we've worked on for as long as the Forest Service has existed up until the past couple of years ago. They're both 170,000 acres. So to put together an environmental analysis that demonstrates compliance with all like law, regulation, and policy, Endangered Species Act, Clean Water Act, the Historic Preservation Act, et cetera, that's a huge endeavor. And to try to make it readable so that people can understand what we're proposing and what the effects of that proposed activities are. So Sierra Institute has been doing a fantastic job. And then the Forest Service will ultimately sign the decision for that. So that's probably more detail than I wanted to provide on that, but it's exciting because it's a huge effort. And then once we get through there, that means we're close. You know, this draft environmental assessment, 30-day comment period, then we could issue a draft decision. And that means then we can start working, you know, anywhere in that 170,000 acres, and we'll have our environmental compliance out of the way. There's an objection period that follows. Anyway, but that, you know, we're teeing it up to be ready to go like by fall. But the first area that we want to work on is, and we're trying to find funding. We actually have lined up most of the funding for a unit right around here in Greenville to do kind of the same stuff that Michael was describing, clearing the trees, and then replanting, reforesting. So we're hoping to start that sometime this summer. So that's gonna actually require an emergency authorization because the NEPA won't quite be finished yet. So that emergency authorization would have to be signed by the chief of the Forest Service. So we're starting to tee that up so that we can start treating just some small areas around Greenville and then also around Taylorsville and some of the green area there. So those are the first things that are gonna come out of this big project area. The tributaries one is a little bit behind, well, not behind, but they're not, this one's ahead in terms of the NEPA process. This one, the draft EA would probably come later this summer and then the same process. There really isn't a lot of communities involved in this year, but there's a lot of area that needs to be reforested. Boy, I'm talking a lot more than I thought I would today. I'm almost gonna wrap up here. What's the nice part about this is, and this is the part that Kest alluded to, 275 million that's not being spent in these areas. And that's because it's not intended for burned areas. It's the wildfire crisis strategy. You've heard me mention it here a few times, just in passing, not a lot. I haven't talked about it a lot because it's not focused on here. So the wildfire crisis strategy was something that came out in 2021. Secretary Tom Vilsack, Secretary of Agriculture, Chief Randy Moore, they proposed $50 billion, wanted Congress to fund the Forest Service to the tune of about $50 billion to prevent fires, right? Rather than spending the money on the back end fighting fires, let's get these treatments in place first. So that's the wildfire crisis strategy. They did come out with, Congress responded with about 5 billion for the Forest Service. It may have gone up to 10, 5 to 10 of that 50 billion that was needed. So the way the strategy is written is the money, instead of being spread out across the whole Forest Service, it's going to be focused on particular landscapes. So the first group of landscapes, and this is nationwide, there were only 10 of them. Forest Supervisor Chris Carlton, when he heard about this program, well, actually, after living through what you all lived through in 2021, with all these fire teams coming through, he's like, I don't ever want to do that again. I mean, personally, and for the community, of course. Our top priority, he felt, was to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. And so he wanted to take advantage of the wildfire crisis strategy. We proposed a landscape that's basically this here. So we weren't one of the first 10 landscapes, but we were one of the next set of 11 landscapes nationwide that was funded by the wildfire crisis strategy. So there's 21, and we were designated in January of 2023. And a lot of the funding for that fiscal year 23, I think the Plumas got the biggest share of that 275 million. But it has to be focused in our landscape, which is not, I mean, it's unburned land. So basically that's the explanation. We've done a big NEPA project for areas. Actually, this one is signed already. This is the Claremont project that we had already started. It's about 30,000 acres. This one here is the North Quincy project. Yeah, that one we signed in 2023 or early 2023. So we're starting to treat there. This is the North Quincy project that Feather River RCD helped us with planning on. They had some grant money. So we're working on that. And that one, the draft decision just went out yesterday. So we're in the objection phase, but we're hoping there won't be any objections to that. We plan to start this summer treating there. The other is mostly, this is all in the NEPA phase of the Central West project. And there's more on Feather River District down here. And this is all Plumas County. I'm not including any Butte County lands that the forest manages. There's another project up here, the east side one, that's in the NEPA planning phase. But the thing, I'm almost done. The thing to focus on is what we want to see is the green is basically our landscape and the NEPA efforts that are there, that are ongoing. We want to see like more colors on top of it, because those are where we're starting to treat, or we're starting to obligate funds and start getting some work done on the ground. So Mule Deer Foundation is helping with quite a bit around Quincy. The red ones are the ones that the forest is planting ourselves. This beige stuff and the orange stuff, that's that big contract that some of you have heard called the Spirit G to Z stewardship contract. The orange ones are the mandatory units, so that's already under contract. The other beige ones, if we had funding, those are optional units, so we can fund them with the same contract when there's funding. And then this is the yellow stuff is National Forest Foundation. They're managing, we obligated a bunch of money to them. They'll try to leverage it and get more money, but they can hire contractors to start treating in these bright green or bright yellow areas that go down onto like around LaPorte to on Feather River District. Well, there's LaPorte. So kind of American, you know, that area down there on the Quincy LaPorte Road. Last thing I'll say, this funding for the wildfire crisis strategy, and I'm happy to talk more about this and send you some information if you want. There's a hard copy of this map on the back and we can look at it. I could share that map. Can you put it on the website? That map, this map right here, just plop it on the Dixie Fire Collaborative website, would be great. That funding, that 275 million, it came from the first round, those 10 landscapes was bipartisan infrastructure law, the bill 2021. That's where that money, you know how these bills like the infrastructure law or bill, whatever, they include a lot of different programs in them. So that was one portion of that was to give some money to the Forest Service for wildfire crisis strategy. We didn't get any of the infrastructure law money. The money that we got came from the Inflation Reduction Act. If you remember that one, again, really big. That was post-COVID, like the last COVID relief act. So there was money in there for the Forest Service to implement the wildfire crisis strategy. And that's where the Plumas funds came from. My point of this is basically there's no further authorization at this point for the wildfire crisis strategy. They've authorized, like Congress has authorized like 5 to 10 billion. You know, again, the chief and Secretary Vilsack thought we needed 50 billion to try to make a meaningful difference. So we're hoping there'll be more authorizations from Congress in the future to fund that program. In the meantime, this is about, you know, this is as far as we got. We're getting a lot of planning and some stuff in contract. That was way too much. I'm sorry. I thought this was going to be quick, but then we got a lot going on. Wait, are we holding questions till the end or? Okay, all right.
Okay, we're gonna do share outs first. And if you can come up to the X, please.
Hello, everyone. We have less than 1 month to go to the Indian Valley yard sale. So get the garage like cleaned out. Now's the time. You know, you've got the time. You know, you've got that clutter. You know, you don't need it. There's other people in this community who would really value that old saucepan, that old tool. Like it's a way that we can all value from it. Get that clutter out, get some money. It's coming up. It's May the 17th and May the 18th. May the 17th is a Friday. May the 18th is a Saturday. If you want to be in the map, let me know and I'll put you on the map. All right, thank you.
Two things. One, Michaela has 3,000 seedlings for next Friday. She'll probably get to 20,000, but she has 3,000 seedlings for next Friday. And Kest and I have been in contact with one of the librarians from the county, and they are purchasing a Sprinter van for a bookmobile. And the bookmobile, they're going to hire a driver next month. The bookmobile might be here next month, maybe more like June, and they'll be parking on our little triangle of the spot. So I wanted to let you know. Anyone else? Come on up if you would.
Yeah, hi. I work for the Plymouth County Public Works. Just wanted to share a couple things that we've got going. Just kind of free events that may be useful to members of the community. One, there's going to be a household hazardous waste amnesty event that'll be at the East Quincy Transfer Station the first weekend of June. So that's June 1st, Saturday, June 1st. We try to alternate those geographically because we know it's a big county and we want to try to make it fair to folks. So I'll host it in Chester one year, Quincy the next. Delaware almost always has one every year. Second, there's going to be a tire amnesty event for tractor tires, heavy equipment tires, if you got loaders, trucks, basically anything that's not a passenger tire. That's something that I get a lot of calls about. I know we are an agricultural community and there's just not a lot of great outlets for folks to get rid of those tires. So this will be located at the Delacour transfer station. It will be open for a period of 2 of their working weeks. So that is, if I remember correctly, May 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. And then the next working week, May 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. Again, this is free for residents of Plumas County. If you're somebody who has these large tires that you need to get rid of, bring them on in. And if you want more information, call in at Public Works and ask for me, Sean, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or point you towards resources.
Anyone else? Can you come on up? Sure. All right. On the boards there.
I'm a little confused why Joe sit down and we ask everybody else questions. We've been asking questions. I know, but you asked for that. That's fine, you should show. My question, to Joe, and believe me, I like Joe. He's a great guy and I'm a good person and everything like that. I want you guys to concentrate on something when you leave here. He has a beautiful map. He points things to it, tells you a long story about everything. Happens to me all the time. I'm sitting there listening to him and go, man, they're doing a lot. That's great. On your way home, somewhere along that way, you will realize that they haven't done nothing. And that the force out here, this is the only time in 50 years on the force that I've seen them not do anything, not clean it up. You're putting it all at risk. And when he starts talking about another year, I don't know if you caught that because of what they got to go through, another year, and a year from now, no logger is going to want to get in that stand and no firefighter is going to get in there and we're going to be at big risk. Okay, one other point. Joe says we couldn't do it any quicker, all this. Funny thing, on the west shore of Almanor, where all those $1 million houses are, that's all cleaned up. It's a national forest, different forest, and Joe doesn't have control of that. I wish they had control of our area. We'd probably have it cleaned up. Now, Joe, this is nothing personal. I like you, but I'm fed up with it. I can't believe that we're not doing more. I mean, the maps are pretty. That's why I wanted to talk to you here. I wanted to point out there's only one thing on that map that's important to the people in this room, and that's around Greenville. We don't clean that up. And I've been on fires with burns where they didn't clean it up, and we won't have a chance. Those cinders fly for miles, and they're big cinders. And it scorches the ground to the point. I love the community, and I don't want everybody to work so hard and then end up, having to fight another fire. Am I wrong? Or am I right?
Right.
Any other share outs? Just a quick update from Plumas Rural Services. Our Nature Made Kids Camp will be starting again June 1st. It's held at Wild Plumas. More information will be on the DFC website. If you have kids or grandkids, please sign them up. It's free. It's fun day out in the woods with lunch provided. Questions? If the folks that presented could come up, that would be great.
Oh, this has brought a question to my mind. There's been so much talk about the mining that's going to go up Lights Creek and all the private people that are going to suffer from the residue that flows down from that. I'm thinking, well, there's going to be Forest Service that's going to be affected by those residues and stuff like this. What's the take from the Forest Service? Are they just going to sit and listen to some lawyers, or are they going to say, wait a minute, our property is being affected by this poison that's coming down the hill?
Yeah, Forest Service land, all our land. They'd have to do that same environmental analysis that I was describing for our proposed activities in the burned areas. we haven't received a proposal from, is it Crown Mining? Is that the proponent that we? US Copper. Haven't heard a proposal, Julian, from them, so. But yeah, they'll have to demonstrate compliance and demonstrate how they would be protecting water quality, how they'd be protecting air quality, et cetera, and we'd be evaluating that for the Forest Service land. They'd have to have a NEPA process for that. We haven't received anything in terms of a proposal, so I don't know if they're focused on the private land, or what, or if they're just not that close to presenting a proposal, but we haven't heard anything from them. But they will need to comply with and demonstrate compliance if they get to that phase, if they get that far along. To me, it doesn't seem like they're that far along yet.
Ted Stout, Feather River Watershed Alliance. Is the U.S. Forest Service in any kind of negotiations with U.S. Copper regarding land swaps?
None that I'm aware of. That's Mount Huff Ranger District. That's the one that I manage. Nope, haven't been approached by them for a land swap.
I guess I should say why I'm asking that, just for public education. So private entities can potentially do land swaps with Forest Service, and then that's actually private land. And at that point, they are no longer under the requirements of the Forest Service's environmental requirements.
I'll say land swaps take a long time. We're pretty understaffed, certainly on the forest, it's beyond our staff. We rely on the regional office staff. They're not heavily staffed. I can recall just a couple land swaps or land exchanges between even timberlands like private, like SPI and the Forest Service in my 20-some years here. They take a long time and they're not easy to do. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, I guess is what I'm saying. And we haven't been approached.
Jane Braxton Little with the Plymouth Sun. I just wanted to mention that we've run about 5 stories on the Angle proposal from US Copper. And if the most recent one ran on Tuesday, I think, and it raises some questions about the documentation that US Copper has submitted. But bottom line is that the whole issue goes to the zoning administrator on May 8th, if that date holds, and that's when a decision will be made.
Private land, correct. Gene? Oh, okay, patented on the Forest Service. Okay.
No, I have a question for you. I don't hear you. Got it on now? People outside. Do you have a date when you think actually, without saying all the problems, I know you have problems and I recognize it and I'm sorry you do. But do you have a date that you think that something might happen here? That's the first question. And are you gonna give it out to one contractor like the other ones where one guy has complete control of millions of dollars? Are you gonna give people locally an opportunity to both log it and sawmill? There's 7 sawmills in this valley, so there's a potential there. So go ahead.
Yeah. So that one project that I mentioned around Greenville, that's the one that we're working on now. Try to get the contract out this summer, like June, probably June. We would need that emergency authority for the NEPA. But we got funding pretty much lined up for it. We got most of the contract developed. So that would be a smaller operation. I think there'll be 2 optional units. So I think altogether it's about 400 acres of treatment. So that seems like, not a large scale one that would, it'd be a smaller operation for that. So
you won't be treating everything. You'll be treating close to town. Is that what you're saying? Or?
Well,
I mean,
we're gonna
400 acres out there, that's a lot of acres, but it's not gonna take care of the mess.
understood. Yeah. So there's not funding availability for that area, for the burned areas. It's limited right now. And so we're chasing every opportunity. Sierra Institute is helping chase some opportunities too for funding with CAL FIRE, with National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. But yeah, all that area out there, that's going to be really expensive. It's difficult to remove that stuff, as you know, Randy. And the funding isn't really there yet right now, but we're chasing every opportunity we can.
Any other questions?
Just one other thing on further recovery. Is it possible in the future when you're able to start working in this area more to work with landowners to possibly put in fire breaks? So that between property lines and US Forest, we already have pre-built fire breaks in place so that should we have another problem again, we have some more defensible space.
Yes, that's part of the planning effort. And so when that comes out for the draft EA and public review and, if you contact Sierra Institute, you could get a sneak preview of where those fire lines are. But it's gonna be out in the, by mid-May. It'd be helpful if there's a fuel break that's not in there, this would be the ideal time to let us know, because before the decision is made, if there's strategic areas where we should have a permanent fuel break, and maybe it's already partially there, or even if it's not there, but it would be like, this would be an important place, because we kind of got that scale approach with fuel breaks close to communities and then like the ridgetop stuff too. So anyway, Ted, right? Yep. Watch for that or contact Bella at Sierra Institute or Gwen Evans and they could let you know where the existing network is. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. So
I'm sorry, I'm jumping on. Primarily, and this is just a big serious frustration that's gone on for years. Years and years. Here we thought we had some key learnings. You know, fires come, things get burnt, trees don't get removed, big bug infested becomes an issue. We're gonna do something about it, but now we can't do anything about it because there's no money. But why don't we get some other money? Because what you talked about earlier, when you start that all these things are happening for the green areas. Okay, for preventing, but why don't we harvest the stuff when we can, take care of it? And we need to somehow get the message upstairs and I don't know, with your help somehow, because even taking the money, rob the money from the other situations and spend it on the stuff that has to get done, because we're just wasting that timber. And from a person who lived here and harvested the timber, well, I didn't harvest personally, but you know, I've lived through that. Well, all of us here, we benefit from, we work with that. Let's use it, utilize that. Let's not waste it. Let's take care of our forest, not just further let it degrade. So I get that, I'm just preaching, but well, yeah.
Well, I think there'll be opportunities for funding in the future. I mean, that funding went to that wildfire crisis strategy because 2021, it was on Congress's mind. They were getting a lot of pressure. So there's a petition, I understand, to keep letting people know that there's still a need here. In terms of getting the trees when they had value, we're up against a big scale of a problem here, right? And I'll just be honest, I've been the ranger about 3 years. That's my primary regret. That we didn't maybe try to get the first year. I mean, it's a small window, right? You got 2 years basically. And then this third year now, you know, we're reaching out. Oh, that's right. He's still here. There's a smaller one. We're trying to maybe grab some of the bigger stuff that still has value. But so the first year we were basically told the mill doesn't want stuff from the forest land. And that was pretty clear to us. I mean, that was told to my leaders, et cetera, because they had SPI Collins, they had their hands full with their own burned logs. They weren't going to take any from the forest. So that was the first year. The second year, that's where I could have threaded the needle and gotten a small project out that probably would have supported and gotten some trees while they still had value. And that's my regret. But we were, I mean, to my defense, that we were pretty focused on all the other stuff that was going on. And I've only got one prep forester. We lost most of them in COVID or they were promoted somewhere else. My excuses, I won't go on and on and on. But it was a small window. to try to grab them when they had value. The first year wasn't really available. And then the second year, yeah, we could have maybe tried to squeeze something in, but then it'd be a drop in the bucket, honestly, to what's all out there, you know, but it would have been something, right? Yeah. Well, we did deck quite a few trees and we sold, yeah, and that was during the suppression effort. Yep. Yeah. Anyway, we can talk more. I mean, it's a big question, but I won't, I'll leave it there, I think.
What, from my perspective is how can we help other communities? We're going through this right now. We're coming up on 3 years. We're 2.5 realistically. The timber's at where it is. We're at where we're at right now. How do we ensure other communities are like able to fast track burnt timber to go down to merchantable lumber that actually starts to drive economy in the community early on versus being at a position now where myself, all of us as taxpayers are going to pay significantly more to pull that out because there's no merchantable value to it. And so how do we, as a community, writing congressmen, gathering together, tell a story that is compelling, that is an economic story? It is costing taxpayers more money to do this, and it's because of decision-making at high up or bureaucracy or legality or whatever it is. That's where we're at right now. And I think everyone's just frustrated at this point, and rightfully so. Like, looking at the hillside, like we're frustrated and we want to drive the economics and the environment and the beautification, all those things towards the future. So I think any way that U.S. Forest Service, the local district can support the community in better telling this story to other people, that would be a way we can support each other, basically.
Yeah, I think just my 2 cents would be, we need to build up all this would go into that kind of effort to be responsive in that 2 years after a fire. You need operators, you need foresters, you need mills, all those things. And yeah, California is not equipped to be quick and respond to this scale of issues. So that would be my primary message, that if we're going to beat a drum, it's like, let's keep getting those businesses that manage forest projects at every stage of the management, you know, like the foresters that plan the projects, the operators that take it out, the truck drivers, and then the mills and that biomass facility. Awesome. Yeah, stuff like that. So that would be my approach, is like, let's keep beating that drum.
But Joe, we have the truck drivers and the mills and the folks that would do the work. What we don't have is the permission from the people upstairs to be able to take the wood out when it has value, when they would pay you to take the wood out. So how do we do what Tyler said, where we fast track after a fire, so we're not waiting all this time until there's no value and then we have to pay them to take it out?
Well, so again, it was, you know, I explained that we really didn't have the opportunity to even pursue anything the first year. So the challenge, and I've wondered about this too, is, you know, because you see the private landowners, SPI, Collins, they move fast. They have emergency exemptions that they get from the state. We've got some of those tools. They have to go to the chief. So we're starting to get more of those tools to move quicker. But we still are in a different situation, I think, where, well, most of you know, we got sued on that green project. The Central West one, the one that I was showing, we've been sued on that just in the last month, I think. And so now we're working on the litigation for that. And I just bring that up because it's everybody's land, right? And everybody has a different opinion of what should go on out there. It's always going to be difficult to get through that environmental review, no matter what tools we get. I think it'll be more difficult than a private landowner like SPI, because it's their land and their mission is, you know, it's their mission and they can decide what it is. And it's maybe less complicated when you're trying to manage a mission you know, that's supposed to serve everybody's wants and wishes to some degree. It's, we're trying to be faster and more responsive, but I don't know that it's ever gonna be, it won't probably ever be as fast as that. That's just my opinion as the private. That's, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna finish it up for the day since we're over time. If you have more questions, please seek out whoever you have a question of. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.